Hello, Exiles. This is Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and today I will be talking about the Honored Tattoo of the Paw, which is melee hits fortify, and of course it's limited to one attribute notable tattoo. You have to put it on a strength notable that grants 30 strength, which fits quite easily into the build right here. This tattoo completely warps the Frost Blades Trickster build, and many other builds as well. But one of the key components of the Frost Blade Trickster is you needed a chance to fortify on melee hit on your body armor. I don't have my body armor properly crafted here, but the two components of the body armor you really wanted were the physical damage taken from hits as fire and lightning, and the fortify on melee hit. Now that you get one of those components from a tattoo, on top of, all this other juicy stuff from tattoos, but specifically this tattoo, you can run Unique Body Armours as your body armor. And so I'm going to go over all of the different options you have, some of which are going to be much better than other. Realistically, there's probably 3 to 6 actual endgame options, but there's a ton of armors you could use in theory if you happen to have a 6 link of a certain body armor sitting around. And I am going to just talk about all of them because potentially, given the circumstances, your budget, if you're in solo self-found and happen to find this tattoo but don't have, any other 6 links other than one of the kind of worse ones here, I want to show you that there are a lot of decent options that could potentially replace your rare body armor. Some of these might actually still be worse than a rare body armor, but I do want to talk about the pros and cons. So I'm going to go through each of these individually. On the lower end here, kind of bad, but you can use it, is Fox Shade. Fox Shade is just going to be some evasion, but some of the positive things is you get a large amount of flat evasion while on full life, which is often with all the instant leech, life gain on hit. Because we have high evasion, you get a bunch of movement speed on full life, and damage from enemies hitting you is unlucky while on full life. Unlucky, for those of you who don't know, is that the damage is rolled twice and it takes the lower of the two values. So let's say something hits you and the attack could do, let's say 300 to 1,000 damage, and one of them does 400 and one of them does 900. It'll roll it twice. That hit will hit you for the 400, taking the lower number. So this could be a pretty substantial amount of utility and actually a decent amount of defense as well. It's kind of lacking, it's kind of on the lower end, but the positives, you could slap this on at level 25 if you're leveling Frost Blades as your second character, if you get a 6 link one of these. I've just found 6 links Fox Shades in previous leagues before, so it's definitely possible. And yeah, then you throw on the tattoo and you're good to go. Next is Queen of the Forest. I would also rate this on the lower end. It does give, life and triple resist to various degrees. I need to stop clicking on the actual thing. The other benefit being that you get 1% increased movement speed per 600 evasion rating up to 75%, at the cost 25% reduced movement speed. So you're going to have to get a fairly high amount of evasion. Just looking at this here, you can see that you're going to need a solid 15,000 just to counteract the movement speed. But if you're really going hard stacking evasion, then this could definitely be an option for you. And yeah, you're like, if you have 40, 50, 60,000 evasion, you could get quite a bit of movement speed. But honestly, I would say this is still kind of at the lower end. Here's a better one, Kinsugi. Kinsugi is similar to Fox Shade in that it adds a huge amount of defensive utility if you are, in this case, haven't been hit recently. Very similar to Full Life. However, it's better if you're like taking random dots and stuff like on desecrated ground and whatnot. So Kinsugi is better in this situation. It's also better because it has a much higher base evasion, up to 2106, and I believe that's without quality. And then you have a pretty good fire resist roll, 30 to 50%, and 100% increased evasion if you have been hit recently. So If you do get hit, you'll proc the 35% less damage taken, and then you'll probably not be hit for a longer period of time, because for about 4 seconds after that hit, you will also have 100% increased evasion. Kinsugi is a very powerful defensive chess piece, and I've used it in previous builds that stack evasion, especially if you... the interesting thing about it is if you're also stacking block and you get hit and you block the hit, it still counts as you being hit, so you'll get that extra evasion, so you won't get hit for even longer and you won't suffer the damage. And then by the time it rolls around with the entropy and everything, you get hit again, the 35% less damage, which is also 4 seconds, will have rolled around again. Bad thing is, you know, spell hits are still hits, and we don't have spell block or spell evade, or spell dodge rather. We have suppression, so against spell heavy enemies, Kinsugi is quite bad, but against attackers, which we have a little bit more trouble with in general, Kinsugi is very, very strong. Now, if you have a mix between casters and attackers in your maps, you're probably going to have a bad time, more than likely. So maybe Kinsugi isn't the #1 pick I'd pick, but still pretty good. Next, we have Iriel's Fostering, and this is an interesting one. So first of all, a lot of accuracy on a body armor, uncommon, pretty high evasion, a summon bestial Roa skill, projectile attack skills have 40 to 60% increased crit chance, a high life roll. Now, Frost Blades is a projectile attack skill. Since it doesn't say projectile attacks, it will apply to the whole skill, including the melee portion and not just the projectile portion, similar to, if I pull it up, similar to how lethality works. It basically, if the skill has the projectile tag, which Frost Blades does, it'll count. So that's a very powerful thing to note. And then 10 to 15% increased attack and movement speed while you have a bestial minion. So as long as you have the minion up the bestial Roa, which I'm not really sure, you don't have any like minion stuff, so chances are good you're going to have to kind of keep summoning this. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. Enemies will not engage this minion directly, and they're immune to damage. Oh, never mind. So if that's the case, I guess it'll just always be up. So yeah, this is actually a pretty good option, something you can consider. Next is another very good one. This one is actually an excellent option as well. Snowblind Grace, pretty high evasion, percent increased dexterity. Now that I'm switching over a bunch of my tattoos to be the percent or the +4 attribute ones, my actual dexterity is a little lower than it would normally be, so that could be useful. I need 155, I believe, for Frostblades level 20, and like 161 or something for 21. 60 max life, increased Arctic armor buff, and if you don't know what Arctic armor does, it gives you less damage taken from physical and fire damage while stationary, which most of the time when you're attacking, you'll be stationary, and if you use Frost Blink, you will remain stationary because it's basically will just move you in place. It's an instant skill, so you'll immediately go back to stationary. So you'll just have that, and you get the 50% increased effect, which means 30. Yeah, you get 31.5 or 32% physical damage, less physical damage taken from hits. That's actually really big because physical damage is one of the things we struggle with, which is one of the reasons I suggest taking physical damage taken as elemental on the body armor. So this is a very good option, and I'd highly recommend considering this if you want to improve your physical defenses. Next, we have one that's really bad defensively, but really insane offensively. It is Dialys Mellif. You will be a glass cannon if you decide to go this route. However, +2 levels to your Frost Blades, and +2 levels to your Ice Bite, and +30 quality to a bunch of your support gems is actually very, very insane. And your damage will absolutely skyrocket, but boy, you're going to have a tough time defensively because it just has a small amount of energy shield. And so you're not going to get any evasion or armor or anything like that from your body armor. You don't have any life on here. You don't have any fizz taken as elemental. Basically, you're going to turn full glass cannon mode if you put this on, but the damage, I don't think you're going to beat Dialys Mellif action for offensive options. Next, we have Belly of the Beast. Belly of the Beast is just a ton of life. You get some life, you get some resist, you know, kind of high armor, not very high evasion. So if you just want to add a bunch of life to your build, you can go Belly of the Beast. It's not really any more than that. If you want a ton of life, throw this on. 40% increased max life is just a lot of life. Next, we have Lightning Coil, which takes... This one's going to require a little bit of investment. You're going to have to get a bunch of lightning resist from your other gear to really make this work. You can also try to fit in Purity of Lightning, so you can get even higher max lightning resist as well. You could also get increased max lightning resist from tattoos, which would be nice. And if you can do both, even better. And then 50% of physical damage from hits is taken as lightning damage. It also has a very respectable armor and evasion spread there, up to 992. Very good, with quality that could be over 1,000 easily of each. Very, very nice. Good life. And you get a little lightning damage to attacks, which doesn't really affect anything. So Lightning Coil is possibly one of the best options around as well. I would say defensively, this is probably about as good as it gets if you want to go that route, but it does require that special investment because of the minus 60 lightning res. Next, we have Duresso's Defiance. Even better armor and evasion, extremely high. It's got life. You have gain an endurance charge on kill, gain onslaught for 5 seconds per endurance charge when hit, 100% increased effective onslaught on you. And if you're running a silver flask, you'll really appreciate that. That's just a ton more attack speed, move speed. And then, yeah, just the ability to generate endurance charges very easily, especially with your endurance charge duration, while having a very high armor evasion spread here. Really good. Duresso's Defiance is a great option as well. And it works both offensively and defensively because of the increased effective onslaught. So on top of being pretty solid defensively, it's very good offensively. Pharaoh's Fur. Pharaoh's Fur is something a lot of people really like. It gives aspect of the cat, which is quite strong, and it makes it have no reservation, so you get to run it for free. You're just going to get a bunch of extra, let's see, you get from Cat's Stealth, you're going to be rocking 10% increased attack and cast speed, and 100% critical strike chance, and 15% chance to avoid all damage from hits. You also get avoid all damage from hits from Nightblade, from Elusive, so that's very strong. And then Cat's Agility is the other one that it goes to. Oh, maybe these cycle. I don't really... one... Okay, one gives the attack and cast speed, and one gives the crit chance and damage avoid. Right. I should know that, but apparently I don't. But yeah, this is a really good option too. Once again, very nice armor evasion spread, very good life, and yeah, just the utility of getting free cat stealth, which is a very strong buff. Next, we have Lore Weave. Lore Weave has a lot of benefits as well. Lore Weave gives a bunch of damage, a bunch of attributes. It is armor energy shield, so getting the links right is going to be awkward, and you're going to be missing out on evasion on your chest armor, which could be not so great. The life roll isn't super good. The energy shield isn't necessarily good enough to justify going into... oh, I don't have it here. There you go. Ghost Dance. Especially considering you will be lowering your evasion, which will make Ghost Dance potentially even worse. But you do get rarity, elemental damage, flat fizz, some of which will get converted to cold, crit chance. And then one of the nicer things is max resist will be set to 78, potentially 76 to 78. So that's just a bunch of free max res. And because it sets your resistances to that. That can't be altered, which means, for instance, against the Searing Exarch, stepping on the little things isn't going to lower your fire res. Getting hit by Phoenix Explosion isn't going to lower your fire res. You can run minus max res maps and it won't affect that. So you'll just have 78 max res all the time. Very, very strong. So there are definitely some drawbacks to it, but Lore Weave could potentially be a strong option. Expedition's End. This is, in my opinion, my favorite of all of them. And probably what I'm personally going to go for. It is quite expensive at the moment. Even unlinked or whatever, it is currently going for like 2.5 exalts roughly, and that's for some of the worst rolls. If you want a really well rolled one, you're gonna have to shell out, but it has some evasion. It's not like a super impressive, but it's got okay energy shield. You could have potentially the option, depending on the placement of your historic jewel, to go ghost stance, so that is something you could consider. You get percent max life, very good. All damage can freeze, making it so that your heat shiver damage, the fire, the 30% from the chill that you get, and then the 100% you get from the actual freeze can freeze. So it'll make it easier to hit that initial freeze, and then all subsequent freezes will be very easy. This is going to make Ubers a breeze and much more doable on this build, and doable much earlier. Not only that, but you freeze chilled enemies as if dealing 50 to 100% more damage. And nearby enemies are chilled, so you're always hitting chilled enemies. So here's the nice thing about this, is if you think about it, so in order to get a freeze on an Uber boss, they have 70% built-in damage reduction. That's hard, and you have to do that with just your basic damage. And with low shocks usually too, because it's going to be before you build everything up. So that initial freeze on those bosses can be really, really hard on Ubers, which is one of the biggest hurdles to doing Ubers on this build. Immediately, you will be freezing as if doing double damage, so it'll be twice as easy. To get that initial freeze, you just need to get like a high roll hit and then proc your inverted elemental resist mastery here. Basically, one of them will get you snowballing, and as soon as you have it up, all of a sudden, you have like 700% the freeze you would have without this armor, because you are getting an additional 130% damage-wise. You're scaling anything as far as like the freeze duration you might have if you're running southbound, any of the freeze duration you have on jewels, or on various things like right now I have 100% duration on southbound. I have 15% duration here, 16% duration here, and 20% duration here. So I'm rocking a solid like something like close to 150%, I think, or more. Yeah, right around 150% freeze duration. So that will then further be multiplied by this, and that'll also be further multiplied by the damage, because you're going to be all of a sudden hitting for like basically 260% more damage for your free, or 160% more damage for your freeze, or 130% or something. So then you can take that normal 250% as far as like your freeze duration, minus 30%, because I forgot Yoke of Suffering, so I guess 220% freeze duration, and then you'll multiply that by 200 or by 2.3, and then you'll double that again. Basically, that's a lot. That's I can pull up a calculator here, so just quick. So we'll say 220% accounting for freeze duration, and then times 2 from the 100% more, and then since we're doing 100 or we're freezing as if hitting for 130% more damage, times 2.3. Yeah, so you're literally freezing for 10 times what you normally would against Uber bosses. So that more than makes up for the 70% damage loss, and you should actually freeze Ubers literally more easily than you freeze regular pinnacles right now. you know, almost 3 times as much in terms of how efficiently you freeze them. So this is going to be my choice. It's really huge. It's really insane. But let's move on to the next one. The Admiral. This one requires you jumping through some hoops, but it has a lot of potential. So you cannot run this with the inverted elemental mastery resist, or inverted elemental resist mastery that we would run things under normally, because you'll have to dual curse as well as use exposure. So exposure and curses mess up the inversion, because penetration is applied after the inversion, whereas the lowering of resistances through exposure and curses apply before the inversion. So it actually makes the inversion worse. In this case, you'll have to get rid of that mastery, and you'll have to run dual curse. So you'll run at one of the elemental curses and then elemental weakness. So frostbite probably plus elemental weakness, and then you'll get like your 20% cold exposure or whatever from your glove enchant or whatever it might be. And so you'll massively lower enemy resistances by like, you know, 90% or whatever. You can get some curse effect if you need to. And then you throw this on. And actually, the more I think about it, it's actually probably worse than just having the elemental inversion, but it is more consistent. 4 times more consistent. So you're probably going to get like a solid, when you actually do the inverted hits, you're probably getting like 70% more penetration functionally, or more lowering, but that's only 25% of the time. But once we have our freezes rolling, that doesn't really matter. So I don't think that Admiral is actually a good idea, and it requires you to jump through a lot of hoops. Pretty good stats though, actually not that great. Next one, one of the biggest defensive powerhouses in the game, Doppelganger's Guise. It's very, very strong. All you have to do is stay sane, Exile, while you have the Unhinged skill. You just keep it on sane, and you will get 40% less physical and chaos damage taken. And that's not from hits, that's all of it. So that applies to bleeding, corrupted blood, chaos damage over time, the pools like the Cirrus storms, all sorts. There's all sorts of chaos and physical damage over time in the game. All of that gets lowered, and then your physical damage from hits also gets lowered. So very, very strong. And then you also get regenerate 10% of life over 1 second while hit while sane. Not really relevant for our build since our recovery is so good already, but whatever, it's a little extra bonus. Downside is it really doesn't do anything other than that. It just has a really crazy defensive bonus, and it doesn't even have that good of evasion. So yeah, but once you have like your fortify up with the less physical damage taken, and then you also combine that with Heartstopper as well, all of that kind of adds together, all those less damage taken, and you'll end up easily being able to tank all sorts of stuff. So really, really cool. But, you know, maybe a little less exciting. It's kind of just boringly, generically good defensively. Impulse's Broken Heart. Well, we run Yoke of Suffering, so we shock everything. This will give you more damage, or increased damage if you've shocked an enemy recently, increased effective shock, making higher shocks easier. And what it really pushes is our clear. And, well, I think it can create chain explosions with the way it should work. So, oh no, because the explosions will do lightning damage, which won't freeze, which won't cause the Herald of Frost to go, or Herald of Ice to go off. So maybe not. So it'll chain explode off of the Herald of Ice, but then it won't go the other way, because this explosion too cannot shock. So yeah, a little bit unfortunate. Can't quite get some crazy chain explosion, but it could be useful for getting chain clears. I would say I wouldn't prioritize this. The defenses are really nothing to write home about. Pretty low evasion, pretty low energy shield. Life's okay. So, yeah, just if you need more clear, I guess, but you really shouldn't need that much more clear. Next, we have the Evasion Energy Shield, or Evasion Armor with Life version of its Eerie Splendor. Just got a lot of life, resistances, and a lot of defenses. Wouldn't be my first choice. There's a lot of overlap here with our Ascendancy Polymath, as far as getting that life and mana per kill. We don't need it because we already get plenty of that. So yeah, this isn't super high priority, but if you happen to have one and you don't have any of the other ones, this should work just fine. Lastly, Skin of the Lords. Well, we get a random keystone. We get +2 to socketed gems. I talked about the back here, whatchamacallit, I already forgot, Dialys Mellif action. So that gives plus to gem levels and plus quality. This will give plus to gem levels as well, but the nice thing that this has over that is the increased global defenses, which will scale your evasion from Grace. It'll scale your evasion and armor from your other stuff as well. So that could be okay. And also you have the option to get a keystone. What keystone would you want? Well, unfortunately, there's not like a ton of super great ones. You can take Leaf Shade is generically good. There's some that are just generically pretty good, but I would say none of these are, you know, amazing. If you're not spell suppressed capped, you can take Mage Bane. That's all right. Like there's some okay ones, but you know, there's nothing super to write home about, I would say, as far as that. You definitely don't want to be taking things like Unwavering Stance. You could take Iron Reflexes if you want more consistent stuff, and you don't want to like go into Wind Dancer or anything. That is an option for sure. So yeah, that is the whole list. This ended up being way longer than I thought. I ended up having a lot to say about this. But yeah, go out. They're like 40 chaos or something for Honored Tattoo of the Paw. Hopefully this doesn't drive up the prices, but I was able to self-farm one personally. Hopefully you will be able to as well if you're in solo self-found or if the prices go up too high. But right now, very affordable 40C. Grab this. And yeah, you can transform the potential of this build. Hope you enjoyed. This has been Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and I will see you next time. Bye.